Thanks for being with me. I hope you're having a blessed day. You know, we can talk about a lot of things on the show, but today I want to talk about energy and how we get it and how we use it, and the blessing that we have of having these resources that God has put in place for us to use. You know, our world is really a created world that's just so wonderful for man, with the great climate and all the resources that we've been able to access and use. And we really need to think hard about how we use the earth and how we are going to be sustainable and not be short-sighted. You know, one of our problems as men is that we really live for the immediate future and don't think about the long term. Don't think about what it's going to be like 100 years from now. I'm kind of blessed that I come from a family that has had multiple generations of success. And when I think about how different the world is from the world that was 100 years ago, when resources that were being easily used, you know, became less accessible and the population grew, we've seen a drastic change in the world in the last 100 years. What's the future going to look like 100 years from now? People project, there's a lot of projections about things, but there's also a fundamental ignorance that many resources are really on a path of depletion. So we're going to have a very different lifestyle in the distant future. I advocate that we need to restrain ourselves and become more efficient and really engage in a lot of thought about how we can function without depleting so many resources. And, you know, right now, there's a lot of energy and a lot of marketing and promotion about the idea of using photovoltaic solar panels and big horizontal axis wind turbines to generate electricity. And there's some thought that that can be a source of power that man can really rely on. But the problem is those sources are intermittent. You know, today as we speak, it's a cloudy, partly cloudy day. As I record this show, it may be a sunny day or a nice evening when you watch it. My show is oftentimes on in the evening, which would be a time there wouldn't be any solar power. So we need to think long and hard about how we can be sustainable and create really long-lasting structures to generate power that don't go bad after 20 years. Because 20 years, friends, is not a long time. I've lived 61 years and it seems like a blink of an eye. And if you're older, you know as well as I do how time just flies by, how a year just isn't much time anymore. So we need to think about building things that will last for 50 or 100 years, not a 20-year lifespan with no real way to reclaim the resources that went into making that device, and with no way to recycle it and rejuvenate it. You know, wind turbines, they have blades made of fiberglass, and fiberglass can't be recycled, and they're currently tearing down wind turbines that are only 10 years old or a little older and taking them to the landfill because the 10-year tax credit that's one of the big sources of funding for wind energy goes away after 10 years, and all of a sudden the turbine is only good for the little bit of electricity that it generates in a variable amount. So old wind turbines are being torn down far before what people thought was their lifespan and taken to the landfill, leaving enormous amounts of concrete buried underground. There's the expense of chipping away the concrete to restore the land to where it can be farmed. A very expensive procedure, and something that we need to really think long and hard about as we have people proposing mandated power sources instead of allowing the market and development to occur. I don't know about you, but I'm very concerned when people start saying this is how you have to do something, and the something isn't very reliable and isn't going to give you a good quality of life. California is seeing this as they've increased their percentage of renewables and solar, and they're starting to have blackouts because they can't import enough power from other states sometimes, and they've gotten away from the always available natural gas power plants. So friends, we need full backup of solar and wind with natural gas powered generation that can step in when that power source fails. Now, I don't know if you remember or if I've really talked about it, but one of my activities, one of the things I'm good at or enjoy doing, I have an extremely high flow of ideas, and I'm an inventor by avocation and have an invention company, and I'm thinking about new ways that we can do things that really make things work better. And one of the things that I've thought about is that one of the problems we have with solar power is that it goes away in an instant when there's a cloud sweeping by. Maybe the power only goes away for a few minutes, but what does that do to your home if all of a sudden the electric grid has a sudden dip in power and your computer quits working, or the grid operator, the person in charge of the electric system that distributes power to your home, has to institute a rolling blackout and shut you off because the power supply went down dramatically because clouds hit the solar array. Right now, we don't have enough solar on the grid generating power to overcome the available power from turbine generators such as nuclear, natural gas, and coal that can step up to fill the gap when the solar plunges. But what if solar becomes a major part of our power system where there isn't backup, as some advocate? This can be a real problem, and the problem can be that we have unreliable power, and then all of a sudden you have a blackout imposed on your area and your computer crashes and you come to a screeching halt. This is what can happen if we don't have redundancy and backup power when you're trying to rely on something intermittent like the sun. You can go to the Get Real Alliance website and look at our blog and see a great article on solar power output here in the Dallas area that has actual graphs of solar output that we measured using a precise pyranometer that measured minute by minute the output of the sun for a year. And we have charts that show what a week of sun looks like in the summer and in the winter that are representative of, we measured the sun's power for over a year, because I have a solar power invention that I thought might have real merit. But friends, after I saw how unreliable and undependable and variable the sun was, we didn't really pursue my invention because there's so many losses of power. But go to the website. I can talk about it at length, but talk is great, but a picture really tells the story. And the real story is the sun's power goes up and down dramatically, starting at near zero first thing in the morning when the sun is not up, and rising to a peak at midday, and there's a short period of high solar output at midday, and then it plummets back down as the day goes on, diminishing to zero again in the late afternoon. So it's not shining when you need the power. When you need the power in the morning when you get up and you try to turn on the microwave, turn on the coffee maker, use the hot water heater. If you're relying on solar power for that, you're in real trouble. You have to have some way to store that power, and that costs money, and that wears out too. So we have a real issue with the proposals that are being made for, quote, green zero carbon energy actually use a lot of carbon to make the equipment, to make the power that takes years of power production to make back. And of course, those carbon emissions, if you're buying solar panels that are made in China, they're burning coal to make the solar panels. So you've emitted a lot of carbon dioxide into the air. The current mainstream climate activist program doesn't do anything to suck the carbon dioxide out of the air. So any carbon emissions just increase the load, and nobody's thinking about how to restore things. The Get Real Alliance is really about getting away from thinking about trying to not emit carbon and thinking about making the earth sequester more carbon dioxide so that the level of carbon dioxide is level to decreasing instead of rising due to man's activities, both burning fossil fuel, farming practices that emit carbon dioxide, and deforestation and burning and other problems that we have. We need to really think long and hard and try to be rational, and that's what the Get Real Alliance is all about. Getting rational, getting real, and thinking about what does really mean to say that I'm going to rely on something that's only producing full power for a couple of hours a day and falls off dramatically in the evening and is gone by the time I get home from work and really need power. And what am I going to do if that's our primary means of generation and we don't have natural gas backup? What am I going to do if we pass policies that diminish natural gas production falsely when we have 100 years of supply? If we impose things like a ban on hydraulic fracturing, we crush the shale revolution, we crush America's large reserves of natural gas and send us into shortage, send the world into shortage, where the prices escalate to a super high level that people can't afford, that really imposes austerity on America. And guess where those dollars go? If we kill the domestic industry by banning fracking in the U.S., the international oil companies with deep offshore reserves in foreign waters are going to thrive. Russia and Saudi Arabia are going to become wealthy, wealthy nations again and really thrive. So friends, there is real danger to proposals to try to restrict American production, especially natural gas, which is the cleaner fuel. It means keeping burning coal, which is very destructive and polluting. It means seeing carbon dioxide levels rise because we don't burn clean natural gas. Instead, we burn more coal. Instead, we're using up lots of energy to produce solar panels that are short-lived, and China's burning increased amounts of coal. It's a bad situation, friends, and we need to really resist the proposals. Now, we have a choice this fall, and the Get Real Alliance is not partisan, but we are promoting our solution to climate change, which is soil carbon sequestration, and not mandating the use of wind and solar to the exclusion of natural gas. And the anti-natural gas movement that's prevalent in the Democratic Party is very harmful to the climate. And as in medicine, it's said, do no harm. In terms of what you do should always make things better. Don't do something that hurts things. And friends, the Democratic proposals hurt things. the Republican proposals don't do any immediate harm. If we increase natural gas use, we would decrease coal use and actually lower America's carbon emissions. But we're going to lobby. If you join us, if you donate, we're going to lobby hard to change the climate agenda of both parties into a neutral middle ground of positive regeneration of the soil and restoring the earth to health where it can soak up all this carbon dioxide. There are changes we can make, and we're going to talk about them a lot. But having sensible power means having backup so that you don't have the power go out when a cloud comes over. Now, one thing we can do, and the solar industry has really tried to not interact with the fossil fuel industry at all, but there's a new way we could convert. Solar power produces DC electricity, which you can't use in your home. You need AC power in your home. DC is a constant voltage, a one-way stream of electrons flowing from the source to the use point and back into the earth, or back in a return circuit back to where the DC electricity is generated. The power you use in your home is called alternating current, which means that it goes up and down, and the electrons don't actually flow from one place to another. It's kind of crazy, but literally they're shaking back and forth. And the AC motor and AC lights and all of that technology captures that motion and converts it into electrical power, rotation, and or lights or TV. And the irony is that DC voltage can't be changed easily from a high voltage to a low voltage, whereas AC can be changed up and down in voltage using transformers. Transformers are a part of many electric items, but there's also, in modern equipment, there's what's called an AC to DC converter that converts AC alternating current back into a constant current at a lower voltage, such as charges your cell phone, runs your LED lights, runs your home computer, is involved in your TV. So all this electrical technology is miraculous, but it all comes at a cost of energy used to do that. But currently, when they generate solar power, it generates DC voltage that has to be converted into AC voltage to be put into the electric grid and sent to your home. They do this with something called an inverter, which creates synthetic AC. So it chops up the DC current and at different voltages and creates a wave so that, but it's a synthetic wave. It's like a CD doesn't create a true sine wave of music. Some audiophiles insist that records have a better, more authentic sound because they generate a pure sine wave because it's recorded in the vinyl of the record and transmitted through the mechanism instead of being created digitally. But anyway, the way we generate AC electricity with power plants is driving what's called an alternator, which creates those magnetic waves through electromagnetism that go up and down 60 times a second, faster than we can see, faster than we can react to. But an amazing thing, and it's hard to explain, but we need to really work on keeping rotating alternators because they have inertia that stabilizes the grids. When a bunch of people turn the lights on, the rotating mass of the generator can stabilize the grid and keep it going. Whereas with solar, there is no flywheel effect. the way we do things right now. And so a surge in power drops the voltage and changes things and makes it less stable. So we are in danger of having an unreliable, unstable grid unless we introduce flywheel-powered alternators in the solar system. And I have a solution to that we're promoting in the book, which is to use a DC motor. You can use DC electricity to drive a motor that then drives a flywheel that then drives an AC alternator to produce reliable, steady state electricity that has that flywheel effect, so that when a cloud comes over the solar panels and the power drops off dramatically, that flywheel keeps spinning and keeps the power flowing to your home, so your computer doesn't dim and your lights don't dim, and if the electricity stays over. But the good thing about this flywheel system is you can have a gas-powered motor or turbine set up to power the flywheel as well. So if the clouds stay over, or if the clouds and the sun goes down at night, you can keep generating power to provide that essential power to the homes when people need it. So a different way of thinking of solar power will make the electrical engineers mad, because they love the solid state nature of inverters. But this mechanical system offers a way to really stabilize solar output. We talk about it in the book. We're going to have articles in the blog on the website. So go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, look at the videos, look at the blog, and see the good news that we can do things to make the world a better place. But we need to change our ways, and we need to change our ways from the current methods that are being proposed as solutions for a lower carbon future. So making the earth soak up the carbon dioxide by changing man's practices, by remineralizing the soil, can solve the carbon dioxide problem. But friends, in the long run, if we think about the really long time, we do need to learn to use less fossil fuel, because it is a finite resource, and we're not thinking long term about loving our neighbors being future generations, as well as people living today in poverty and suffering. We need to provide a better way of life for people around the world to be sustainable and be sensible. So there's a lot going on, and we're going to talk about a lot in the book. We're going to have the book out this fall, and I hope that you sign up for the newsletter so you get notification when the book is out, and you can buy it and learn a lot about exciting new ways that we can do things that are better for the environment and better for man. A win-win-win situation, making the world better, making life better for people, and solving the issues that we worry about, that some people worry about tremendously, about rising carbon dioxide. Let's solve that by remineralizing the earth, restoring the earth to health, planting more plants, keeping the soil growing. All these things can be done and give us time to develop new ways to make sustainable, renewable energy. And there's a lot going on. There's a great website called Environmental Progress that has some good information about realistic looks at climate, that denies some of the alarmism. There's a lot of people that feel the need to promote a crisis to try to inspire people to action. But sometimes creating a disastrous crisis that you don't have a ready solution to just discourages people to keep living their lives while they can, and have a hopeless attitude, which creates despair and can create depression and even suicide, as people feel like we're doomed in this world. We're not doomed, friends. We have bountiful resources. We have time to make changes. and we have our God-given ability to innovate and make changes and create a new and better world. And all we need to do is keep freedom in existence, keep free interchange of ideas, free speech, and to talk about these issues and not legislate things set in stone that this is what we have to do. We need to think long and hard about working to a better place. And that's what we're doing at the Get Real Alliance. You can see the shows, you can share the people, share the UA Network website with people, and you can share my shows. And we desperately need more views. We need more people to be aware of the good news. And today I've been talking about solar power and wind power and its limitations, but I've just kind of skated across the surface of the issues. But we need you to share this show and stay tuned and keep watching. Join us and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you will learn more over time. But the good news is we have time and we have a solution that will solve the climate crisis without us having to quit using oil and gas for the foreseeable future. So that is the good news, friends, that we have, and we need to be very careful not to create a world where we don't have reliable power, where we go to a third world status where we never know when we're going to have electricity and when we're going to be regulated. You know, the scary thing is with the smart metering coming in, there is actually going to be an ability for the electric company to turn off your appliances if they don't have enough power to provide them. So, and they are creating a world that could be very much different than the joyful world we have now, where we have power whenever we want it, as much as we want, and our electricity stays on and doesn't go whoom, 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 like it would if we relied on solar as a main power source. So we need the natural gas backup. We need policies to keep the natural gas supply abundant so that we have plenty of natural gas for generations to provide clean, safe power to power America while we use renewables as we can. Take care, have a blessed day, and may peace be in your life.